homelessness in the streets and crime everywhere. I mean, I caught an arsonist in L.A. The police let him go. So this is how the cities are working now. And I think Republicans are better all the way around. They're creating peace in the cities, too.
Robert, got your point. That's Robert in California. Jennifer Wistrand, we were just talking about the expectations for today's meeting. Now that Air Force One's on the ground, pool reports coming in about what the president and his aides are saying about today. This is Meredith McGraw from Politico just a few minutes ago saying the previously planned one-on-one meeting between President Trump and President Putin is now going to be a 3-on-3 meeting. President Trump will be joined by Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. So already some changes to the schedule that we had originally expected. By the way, the photo or the video that viewers are seeing on their screen, President Vladimir Putin's plane coming into Anchorage and getting ready to land. The 3-on-3 versus the 1-on-1. Does that change things in your mind?
I'm sure. I'm really not sure. I mean, Special Envoy Witkoff has been the Special Envoy for the Middle East, and again, mentioned a little bit briefly that the U.S. had held meetings with Russia back in February, I believe, in Saudi Arabia, and Witkoff, I believe, was in attendance. So it'll remain to be seen. Also, given Secretary of State Rubio being there, is it going to be comparable people on the Russian side? So are we going to see Sergei Lavrov, who would be the foreign minister, and then will we see a special envoy on their side, or again, are they going to introduce finance, economics? It's not clear how that's going to change the calculus.
The politics here, or the optics, there was so much focus on, and I'm thinking Helsinki in 2018. On President Trump meeting alone with Vladimir Putin. And there's certainly been plenty of reporting about the history of their relationship. Can you just go back and remind viewers about that moment? We're not going to see now, according to reporting, a one-on-one closed-door meeting between the two presidents.
Yeah, that's an excellent point to raise. So in a lot of presumably viewers' minds, they'll think back on that summit in 2018 in Helsinki between President Putin and President Trump. And there were a number of criticisms out of that, one of which was, as you said, meetings where there weren't any other people in the room, and that was relying, actually in that case, just on the Russian interpreter. And so saying it's actually better if you have other people in the room who can help guide or direct the conversation. Also, criticism that came out of that summit, the Helsinki 2018 summit, is that at the time, there was a lot of discussion going on about Russian involvement, interference in the 2016 U.S. presidential election, specifically in the Hillary Clinton campaign. And Trump was criticized on both sides of the aisle for stating, in the context of that summit, basically coming down as appearing to side more with President Putin and the Russian perspective, that in fact there had not been meddling, that was only, it's Russia propaganda. And President Trump did retract or backtrack on his statements in the following days, saying that he shouldn't have questioned U.S. intelligence reporting. But you're right to raise this. It's very possible that he was advised in advance of the summit. Even if you want to have a one-on-one meeting, it's better if there are a couple other people in the room on both sides.
Now that President Putin's plane is on the ground, can you talk through him being on the ground in the United States and the significance of that? And how he can do that? I know it was 2023, I believe, where the International Criminal Court issued an arrest warrant for Vladimir Putin for war crimes, I believe was what they originally called it. So how can he be on the ground in the United States and traveling freely? Has that been part of the negotiations leading to today's meeting? He's going to be on a military base in the United States.
Yeah, it's highly significant. You're right. In terms of President Putin traveling to the United States, my understanding is it's been about a decade since he met with U.S. officials, again, on the margins of the annual UN Assembly meeting in New York. And so to be traveling to the U.S. for a one-on-one meeting with the U.S. president at a base, obviously I presume part of, as we talked about earlier, the historical significance of it being in Alaska, but also being on a base is significant from a security perspective, but you're right. Since 2023, the International Criminal Court has issued, or at that time issued, an arrest warrant for President Putin because of a number of reasons, but specifically what was in the press quite a bit was his illegal deportation of Ukrainian children from Ukraine, either to Belarus or to Russia. And because of that, again, his mobility, specifically to Western countries, has been highly restricted in the previous years. So the fact that he is now traveling freely to the U.S. is significant.
We're waiting for President Trump to step off of Air Force One. President Putin's plane now on the ground as well in Anchorage. There's an arrival ceremony expected sometime in the next 15 or 20 minutes. We're showing you live pictures from Anchorage. And we are taking your phone calls throughout this afternoon on this highly significant meeting between President Trump and Vladimir Putin. This is Roy in Wheatland, Missouri. Democrat, Roy, what are you expecting from today's meeting?
Hello, thank you for taking my call, and I just enjoy your program, and C-SPAN's right up there, and it's a really good deal.
Appreciate that, Roy. What are you expecting from today?
Well, I was expecting, like I said, I'm a Democrat, but I'm an American first, and I would remind all callers that we're Americans first, that as cunning and sly and evil as Donald Trump is, maybe like he was talking about previously, this is a chance to jump Putin and put him in chains and go ahead and get him on trial for them war crimes. I would love your response to that. Thank you.
Jennifer Wistrand, that as a possibility today, and I will say, I think there's betting websites out there where you can bet on things in the news, and this was one of the things that you could bet on. Wow. The odds, very unlikely that it could happen, but you could bet on this scenario. What are your thoughts on this scenario?
Well, I appreciate the caller calling in and making that comment. I confess I had not anticipated that as one of the possible scenarios coming out of it, but I suppose it's a possibility. I do, but I think the caller raises a good point in terms of, and this we've been talking about, what is going to be discussed here. I think there are a whole number of things that could be discussed, right? It could be the ICC, the International Criminal Court arrest warrant. It could be, additional sanctions, right? And President Trump could bring up, I've been willing, President Putin, to kind of back off on certain things, but if you don't make these concessions, I'm going to ramp up sanctions. So I think we really... I'm not a betting person, so I don't know, but it seems like there's a large number of panoply of things that could be on the table here.
And again, we have a very basic outline of what we think is going to happen today, though it's already changed. There will no longer be a one-on-one between President Trump and President Putin. It's going to be a three-on-three meeting. President Trump now, according to the pool that has been traveling on Air Force One, it'll be Secretary of State Marco Rubio and White House Special Envoy Steve Witkoff joining the president, a three-on-three meeting that's going to be happening today. We've also been watching Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's social media pages, an expectation that he would be sort of live tweeting the events today. As we said, he's not a part of this meeting. President Trump has said that he could be part of a future meeting if there's a ceasefire deal today, a peace treaty meeting hashing out the conditions of peace in Ukraine. But Volodymyr Zelensky tweeting this afternoon, this was about 30 minutes ago, so right as Air Force One was landing, Volodymyr Zelensky saying this on X: Russia must end the war that it itself started and has been dragging on for years. The killings must stop. A meeting of leaders is needed, at the very least, Ukraine, America, and the Russian side. And it is precisely in such a format that effective decisions are possible. Making the point, once again, that he's not there and that this doesn't end until he is, or Ukraine is represented in a negotiation.
Absolutely. I think President Zelensky is in a very difficult position, going back to the Oval Office meeting that he had with President Trump and Vice President Vance in February, where that file counts did not go as he had anticipated and had to, in the following days, apologize, and then President Trump accepting the apology. So I'm sure that right now President Zelensky is frustrated that he's not in attendance, but at the same time doesn't want to look too frustrated for fear that it's going to cause President Trump to take a more pro-Russia than pro-Ukraine position on peace negotiations. So I think he's in a difficult position, but I think he's playing it as well as he possibly can.
We're also looking for social media posts from members of Congress as they're watching the events unfold today. This is Chuck Grassley, Republican from Iowa, the President pro tem of the Senate, saying that a tweet apparently directed to President Trump. The estimate is now that over 35,000 Ukrainian kids have been abducted by Russia. See if Putin will return them home to their families without using them as pawns to trade for something. That will tell you a lot. Chuck Grassley sort of live tweeting his advice to the president as he walks into this negotiation. Can you just talk through a little bit on the Ukrainian children and the abductions issue? I know it's something that you have followed in your studies.
Correct, right. And getting back to the earlier caller mentioning, would there be a possibility that President Trump would use this as a pretext for pressuring President Putin specifically on this issue? Yes, I mean, that is where the international courts have come down hard on President Putin, is going back to 2022 when this started illegally abducting, not that abductions are ever legal, but illegally abducting Ukrainian children, oftentimes to Belarus, sometimes as a staging ground, or through Belarus over to Russia. There's been reports of indoctrination, and then in some cases then using them to fight on the Russian side. And so it will be interesting if President Trump does bring that up. And again, also the numbers mentioned about the casualties. Again, I think the UN Office High Commissioner for Human Rights says that's this very recent report talking about the high number of casualties taking place in Ukraine. So the war, getting back to the ostensible premise for this meeting, which is about a peace treaty, or again, more likely a ceasefire, because that would be the first step towards getting towards an actual peace treaty. But the children who have been abducted, the number of people who have been killed.
And on people that have been killed, there's some numbers this is from the Center for Strategic and International Studies. These are the numbers. Some expectation that it could be close to 1 million Russian soldiers that have been killed since February of 2022. And this is just through May, so not even the summer fighting season, and there has been plenty of fighting throughout the summer. Ukraine, the estimate is approximate ballpark figure. One more social media post from a member of Congress, Dan Sullivan, senator from Alaska, obviously his state hosting today's summit, calling it a historic day. Alaska is the right place for peace talks. Putin understands strength and power. Alaska exudes both, he says. Huge military presence today, the cornerstone of the U.S. missile defense. 100-plus fifth-generation fighters, and I believe some of them are parked there on the tarmac waiting as part of the backdrop for the photo ops that are going to happen. The 11th Airborne Division and a major American energy producer. There's the shot. This is where we're expecting the two men will at least have a handshake and a greeting coming off their planes. There's a red carpet leading between the Air Force jets there. The F-22s, I believe, but I'm sure a viewer might correct me who knows their military fighters better. But that's the sort of the setup there that they have for the two presidents getting ready to meet. John in Atlanta, it's line for Republican. Go ahead. We're waiting for President Trump and President Putin.
Hello?
Go ahead, John.
Hey, how's it going? I think, this meeting, I think the purpose of this meeting should be, to produce an enforceable ceasefire that protects the sovereignty of Ukraine and advance our interests here in the U.S. I think we need to see troop withdrawals, the end of all, missile strikes, release of prisoners, and if Russia, refuses this, I think we just have to walk away and start applying economic, diplomatic, and energy pressure to, raise the cost of continued aggression. I think there's something important here about defending a post-World War II principle that borders can be changed by force. And success means, peace without concession of territory. Yeah.
Jennifer Wistran.
Yeah, great comments by the caller. And circling back to one of your earlier comments or questions, wondering what's going to be discussed. There has been a lot in the lead up to this saying that there will be discussion of land swaps, or, will President Trump suggest to President Putin, would you be okay with this much land? And President, Trump saying, and And obviously this has been highly criticized because, again, the fact that President Zelensky is not there, and Ukraine's position has very strongly been they will not cede any of their land. And I think the caller makes a very good point. If we live still in a post-World War II international order, which we presumably do, where we have been instructed and have abided by, the protection of the sovereignty of countries, territorial integrity. Obviously, Russia has been allowed to not abide by those rules. I know the guest you had on in the previous segment raised this, but I think it's important to re-mention. I mean, Russia illegally invaded Georgia back in 2008, and then it, illegally annexed Crimea in 2014, and then the full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, and all with the ostensible purposes of acquiring land, among other things. Russia currently occupies about 20% of Georgia, currently occupies about 18% of Ukraine. So getting back to the caller's point, again, it is important for the U.S. and other Western countries to say, no, going back to post-World War II, we respect international borders, we respect countries' rights to maintain the sovereignty over their state.
And let me show viewers some of the live pictures coming from Anchorage, Alaska. So we had said earlier that we thought the Russian president was on the ground. Actually, that was the second American plane that was landing. This is the plane carrying Russian President Vladimir Putin. So he's just getting ready to land. You can see wheels coming down from his aircraft and getting ready to land. So it'll be a few minutes until the arrival ceremony, and the two men are expected to walk out down that red carpet together. So we will keep showing you those live pictures and keep taking your calls. This is Aryan out of Illinois Independent. Aryan, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm 18 years old. I was in 5th grade when Donald Trump was first elected. He's kind of been the main figure in politics for me. And it's kind of interesting to see his words, his demeanor play out in my life. I'm really inspired by Dr. Ron Paul's message of just ending this idea of forever wars. And I don't know if I could speak on behalf of all of Gen Z, but, this idea of, Trump's idea of his own ego, I respect, deals like Azerbaijan and Armenia, but this idea of just constantly funding these wars doesn't make sense to me. I grew up in a generation where all we're doing is looking at social media. We're seeing horrific images, whether it's from Gaza or Ukraine or, name your atrocity. And, we're worried about things like Social Security, tariffs, retirement. Already we have to think about these things. I know so many people out there who are just sick and tired and worried. So my only concern here is Trump going to be the person who he says he is? Is he going to really, put his foot down and listen to what the American people have to say? I know so many people who have voted for President Trump and now are beginning to regret their choices. But long story short, just as someone a part of Gen Z, this is not normalcy. And I'm always surprised when I hear about older generations like you guys yourselves talk about, hey, we used to live in a time where, a tweet wasn't the main source of information. People sat down at a dinner table, people sat together and talked about their differences. And, this idea of hyper-partisan politics is something that just frustrates me more than anything.
Aaron, before you go, you talk about sitting down at a dinner table and discussing differences. So what do you think of this face-to-face meeting today, sitting down? It'll be a 3-on-3 meeting and not the one-on-one that we were expected. But is this a positive development?
I hope so. I hope it's just not a PR stunt. I'm also an Indian American, and this idea of Donald Trump putting in his fingers into foreign affairs, and whether or not he has the final say is kind of something up in the air. I think Putin does fear him in the sense where Donald Trump is an unpredictable person, and from a foreign affairs standpoint, that may or may not be good. If you want an immediate ceasefire, I think the logical step would be for obviously Zelensky to give up occupied territory. I know he really doesn't want to do that, but I guess from a Gen Z perspective, if Donald Trump is listening to us, we just, at the very maximum, a humanitarian aid is the only thing we would allow.
That's Aryan out of Illinois, and you're seeing live photos from Anchorage, Alaska, at Elmendorf-Richardson Air Base. It's on the north side of Anchorage, and President Putin's plane is pulling in The caller talked about among his comments, the money that has been spent here. Some numbers on that: the United States aid to Ukraine in various forms, totaling just under $200 billion. It started right after the war began in March of 2022, the first sort of tranche of money, $14 billion going to Ukraine, and has continued steadily. It picked up toward the end of the Biden administration, some $81 billion or so in the final 8 months of the Biden administration. A chart from the Council on Foreign Relations showing the United States spending, it's starting to be matched by the EU institutions and the spending. But can you just talk through the spending and how that's changed under Donald Trump?
Sure, and just I want to underscore what you said too. Great comments by the caller. So someone, a young person calling in and obviously tracking all these issues from a economic to a humanitarian and otherwise. So, and I think he was specifically underscoring, his generation being concerned about the U.S. spending money elsewhere and perhaps not in the United States on Social Security and other things. So wise comments that he was making. In terms of the amounts that have been spent, you're right. There's been, I believe, 5 bills that have been specifically focused on the Ukraine war. The number I've seen a lot is 175 billion that the U.S. has committed in spending to it. The U.S. has given a significant amount, but the European nations, if you put them collectively, have also as well. And it's difficult to disentangle spending. You can look at, NATO contributions. You can look at individual countries. Like I said, you can look at the European nations collectively as a Europe. But the U.S. has committed quite a bit more so than it has to almost any other conflict, I believe, in the last 50 years.
And then how that's changed under Donald Trump in terms of how the money is eventually getting to Ukraine, or at least the material that is eventually getting to Ukraine.
Right. Excellent. Thank you for reminding me of the other half of your question. Right. Prior to the second administration of Donald Trump, under the previous President Biden, it was more money was allocated. Under President Trump, there's been more of a push to say that there needs to be some kind of agreement. So if you go back to February, you had the agreement with Ukraine, the minerals deal, right? Saying that if the U.S. is going to continue to fund Ukraine in the financial, military, and humanitarian ways, which has been the breakdown, that Ukraine should in return do something to the United States, granting it access to these critical minerals or rare earth minerals. There's also been push to say that some of this should be loans, not just straight out aid. So it's been a different approach to helping Ukraine than was under the previous administration.
A side-by-side shot now of Air Force One and then Russian President Vladimir Putin's jet that has just landed and the walkway being set up there. So we're expecting the two presidents to come out here momentarily. We do know that President Trump, along with his aides from the White House, is joined on Air Force One by Mike Dunleavy, the governor of Alaska, by the two Alaskan Republican senators, Lisa Murkowski and Dan Sullivan, so we may see them come down the walkway here. The flags are out and the military escort is lined up, so we're expecting it momentarily, and we'll keep showing you live pictures here on C-SPAN. Stay with us all afternoon as we cover this historic summit, and we take your phone calls and hear from you, asking you what you're expecting from today's meeting. This is Charles in Tampa, Florida, Democrat. Charles, go ahead.
Hi. I'd like to say that I'm 81 years old, and I heard your 18-year-old caller, and I was just so impressed of his grasp of politics, and it makes me feel great for the generations coming. What I did not expect was the stage that Donald Trump has set. These are peace talks, yet he has the stage flanked with 4 fighter jets menacingly close. So Putin has to walk that red carpet right past the noses of those 4 fighter jets. It's either over the top or it's masterful. I don't know which. So thank you for taking my call.
Charles, thanks for pointing out that observation.
Yeah, that is a great observation. And I second the caller's remarks. I, too, am incredibly impressed by the 18-year-old's comments, but incredibly impressed equally by the 81-year-old's comments. I agree. There's a lot of symbolism we can draw from this, right? I think it was one of the tweets you showed earlier from a representative talking about Alaska being the right place because of military history, but also energy history. And I think that was a good point we didn't bring up earlier, right? Obviously, energy politics figures quite a bit into the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, and then how the West has approached it and the U.S. has approached Russia vis-a-vis sanctions. So I think the caller makes a very good point about having a very pronounced military dimension in the red carpet walkway. Maybe getting back to one of the earlier callers' questions or comments about could this be a pretext for emphasizing the International Criminal Court's warrant that's out for Putin. We don't know, but the caller makes a very good point. It's
F-22 Raptors that are lined up there, and we actually, some of the pool pictures from earlier showed at least 2 F-22 Raptors flying over the Air Force base, sort of on patrol, I would assume, ahead of this meeting. So certainly a military presence here in Anchorage at Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson ahead of these peace talks when it comes to the war in Ukraine. Live photos and live video showing you the Russian president's plane there, and we await sort of the arrival ceremony. It was supposed to take place 3 p.m. Eastern time, so it could be any minute now. We'll keep taking your phone calls. Jake is in Jackson, Mississippi, Republican. Go ahead.
Hey, good afternoon. I wanted to piggyback off of what the previous gentleman just said. I'd like to vote that it was a part of Masterclass, putting those F-22 Raptors there. What other chance are we going to give to show Putin the other end, firsthand, American firepower, that if he continues this war, his men will see on the battlefield? And for my fellow American from Illinois, he made a great point about partisanship. How many senators have hundreds of years between them experience dealing with Russia, and they could come together to put together a proposal that Trump could take with him to Alaska? Instead, they're sinking back into their aisles of partisanship. I'd really like to see what Russia would want from Ukraine in concessions, especially with land. What's the price point that they're willing to pay? That's my question.
Any thoughts?
Good question in terms of, what does Russia want? I mean, you can look at the big, 30,000-foot picture going back to the late 1990s when President Putin stated that the collapse of the Soviet Union, which took place in December of 1991, was the greatest catastrophe of the 20th century. And that one of his goals throughout his decades-long tenure now as president has been to, in some way, shape, or form, reconstitute the Soviet Union. As I mentioned earlier, he did illegally invade Georgia in 2008. Georgia, the former Soviet Republic. He occupies about 20% of that country. The illegal invasion of Ukraine, another former Soviet republic. So he is effectively going into various former Soviet republics. In terms of what will he accept? I mean, we've heard that he will say, allow me to maintain the 18 to 20% I have in southeastern Ukraine, which is parts of 4 provinces there. Again, President Zelensky has unequivocally stated that he will not cede any of Ukraine's territories. So I don't know. It'll be interesting if this does become part of the discussion today. Again, that could change the calculus of this whole discussion. Obviously, President Zelensky would be, rightfully so, very upset if discussion about his country's territory were on the table and he wasn't there.
There's a map in today's Wall Street Journal that talks about the 4 regions that you're talking about: Luhansk, Donetsk, that we've heard about for so long, Zaporizhzhia, am I saying that correctly?
Yeah.
Kherson, and then, of course, Crimea, that has been occupied since 2014. It is Luhansk that's almost 100% occupied by Russia. Donetsk, though, it's more about 76% occupied by Russia. And these are sort of the major 4 regions that are part of these negotiations, or at least could be part of negotiations for land swaps. And as you said, President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine saying this shouldn't even be on the table right now. We're awaiting, the doors are open on the Russian president's plane, and we are awaiting the arrival ceremony. We'll keep taking your phone calls. This is Edward out of Aurora, Colorado, independent. Edward, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you? First of all, history. We should take a look at history. I think we should take a look at history as, and I agree with almost all of the callers that have come in. They have spoken about things that our senators and congressmen and women should be thinking about right now. But looking at our history, after World War II, a lot of the land, a lot of the countries were broken up. A lot of things that are troubling our world today came about after World War II. Iran, China, Soviet Union. A lot of those companies were on the especially Iran was on the move to become a democratic country, and the United States and Great Britain stepped in. If we can look at the history now, as far as what's going on in Alaska today, I did some research on President Trump before he became president, and he's not a great politician. He's a great, supposedly, businessman. And as we know, a business is not a democracy. And as far as Putin is concerned, Putin was the leader of the KGB in Russia. Okay, so we have a businessman looking in the eyes of a security or spy. And we all know that a spy can just trump a Trump. Pardon the joke there, I guess. But what I would expect, or what I would like to see today in Alaska, is President Putin to, stop the bombing. And I would like to see President Trump to take a look at not just Russia and Ukraine, but Israel and the Palestinians, with Israel and Iran.
Edward, we'll take your points as President Trump comes walking off Air Force One here.
China's not doing well economically, but we're all, look, I want everybody to do well. The war's got to stop and the killing's got to stop.
To this afternoon, we're going to
Here's Brett Baer. He's here. Brett, how you doing?
How are you? What will make a success of this summit today?
I can't tell you that. I don't know. It's there's nothing set in stone. I want certain things. I want to see a ceasefire. This is not to do with Europe. Europe's not telling me what to do, but they're going to be involved in the process, obviously, as will Zelensky. But I want to see a ceasefire rapidly. I don't know if it's going to be today, but I'm not going to be happy if it's not today. Everyone said it can't be today, but I'm just saying I want the killing to stop. I'm in this to stop the killing. You know, we're not putting up any money. We're making money. They're buying our weapons, and we're sending them to NATO, and NATO's sending us big, beautiful checks. But that I don't care about that. I care about, it was a big factor when Biden spent $350 billion and got nothing. But what I do care about is they lost last week 7,011 people were lost, almost all soldiers. 36 people in a town which got hit by a missile, but over 7,000 soldiers. It's crazy.
Could you describe a little bit, Mr. President, because I know you've had a lot of phone calls with President Putin. What's the difference in a face-to-face, in-person meeting?
Look, he's a smart guy, been doing it for a long time, but so have I. Been doing it for a long time. And here we are with President. That was much more difficult than what I'm doing today, believe me. So we get along. There's a good respect level on both sides, and I think, you know, something's going to come of it. I notice he's bringing a lot of business people from Russia, and that's good. I like that because they want to do business, but they're not doing business until we get the war settled.
Are you going to talk about business?
Will you do business? We have the hottest country on earth. We have the hottest economy on earth. We have the hottest country. We just set a new stock market record again. We have hundreds of billions of dollars flowing in from tariffs. We're the hottest. We were
Texas homeowners, if you could get backup batteries for your home.
1 year ago, we were dead as a doornail, and now we have the hottest country. And he wants a piece of that because his country is not hot economically. In fact, it's the opposite. And China's not doing well economically, but we're all, look, I want everybody to do well. The war's got to stop and the killing's got to stop.
Mr. President, what do you stop? Thank you for coming back to take questions. We saw that Russia continued its violence into Ukraine last night, launching even more drones. What did you make of that?
I think they're trying to negotiate. He's trying to set a stage. I mean, in his mind, that helps him make a better deal. It actually hurts him. But in his mind, that helps him make a better deal if they can continue the killing. Maybe it's a part of the world. Maybe it's just his fabric, his genes, his genetics. But he thinks that makes him, gives him strength in negotiating. I think it hurts him, but I'll be talking to him about it later.
It's on the table for discussions today, Mr. President. Are the territorial swaps on the table? Will you be discussing that?
No, they'll be discussed, but I've got to let Ukraine make that decision. And I think they'll make a proper decision. But I'm not here to negotiate for Ukraine. I'm here to get them at a table. And I think you have two sides. Look, Vladimir Putin wanted to take all of Ukraine. If I wasn't president, he would right now be taking all of Ukraine. But he's not going to do it.
Mr. President, what did you mean?
Just one thing. What about the possibility of the United States providing security guarantees to Ukraine?
Maybe. Along with Europe and other countries. Not in the form of NATO, because that's not going to, you know, there are certain things that aren't going to happen. But, yeah, along with Europe, there's a possibility of that.
Mr. President, the number of business people that President Putin is bringing along, is that something that you want to discuss with President Putin at this meeting?
If we make progress, I would discuss it, because that's one of the things that they would like. They'd like to get a piece of what I built in terms of the economy. Just so you know, we were a dead country with our economy. He wouldn't be interested. He wouldn't have been interested a year ago with the Biden economy. But he is interested in the Trump economy because we're doing. Wait till you see when those factories start opening up. We have hundreds of factories all over the country and that includes auto factories, AI factories, and every other. They're all coming in because they want to beat the tariffs. Because if they open here, they don't have to pay tariffs. If they don't open here, they have to pay, in some cases, 200%, 300%. I haven't even set some of the tariffs yet. I'll be setting tariffs next week and the week after on steel and on, I would say, chips. Chips and semiconductors. We'll be setting sometime next week, week after.
What are you looking at? What rate?
I'm going to have a rate that is going to be lower at the beginning. Then that gives them a chance to come in and build, and very high after a certain period of time. And if they don't build here, they have to pay a very high tariff, which doesn't work, so they'll come and build.
Mr. President, hi. You had said earlier...
Is he over there? Isn't he a general?
He's helping me out.
He's a very nice, he's one of the few nice ones, actually.
You had said earlier this week that Putin would face severe consequences if you get the sense from him that he's not interested. What do you mean by that?
Economically severe. Yes, it will be very severe. I'm not doing this for my health, okay? I don't need it. I'd like to focus on our country, but I'm doing this to save a lot of lives. Yeah, very severe. Thank you very much, everybody.
That was President Trump earlier today aboard Air Force One on his way to Anchorage.
Very seriously hurt, around 11. This morning, the shooter is now in custody, and the Army Criminal Investigation Division is on site to ensure that the perpetrator of this atrocity, which is exactly what it is, will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. The entire nation is praying for the victims and their families, and hopefully they'll fully recover, and we can put this chapter behind, but we're not going to forget what happened. We're going to take very good care of this person that did this horrible person. This afternoon, we're pleased to welcome to the White House one of the great and most esteemed business leaders and geniuses and innovators anywhere in the world, Apple CEO Tim Cook. It's an amazing job. Thanks as well to Secretary of the Treasury Scott Bessent and Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick for being here, wherever you may be. Oh, there you are. Hello, fellas. I missed you. Today, Apple is announcing that it will invest $600 billion, that's with a B, in the United States over the next 4 years. That's $100 billion more than they were originally going to invest. And this is the largest investment Apple has ever made in America and anywhere else. And it's just an honor to have you. As you know, Apple's been an investor in other countries a little bit. I won't say which ones, but a couple. And they're coming home. $600 billion. It's the biggest there is. The company is also unveiling its ambitious new American manufacturing program, which will bring factories and assembly lines across our country all roaring to life. Areas that were not doing so well are doing very well. We have about $17 trillion coming into the United States, which is more than ever before. That's never even come close. There's never been anything like it. Even you, that's even a lot of money for you. But we have commitments of more than $17 trillion. That was as of a couple of weeks ago. These investments will directly create more than 20,000 brand new American jobs and many thousands more at the Apple suppliers like Corning, Broadcom, Texas Instruments, and Samsung, who all deal in that world. As part of this historic commitment, Apple will massively increase spending on its domestic supply chain for the iPhone and will build the largest and most sophisticated smart glass production line in the world in Harrodsburg, Kentucky, which is a great, actually, I did very well there. I like it because I see I did very well there. I did very well in Kentucky, but it's a great place. You're going to be very happy. I thought maybe while we're up, I'll interrupt my own speech by you might show them a little bit about the product that you're going to be doing in Kentucky, Tim.
Absolutely. You mind if I step up?
Yes, please.
This box was made here in the U.S., California, and this glass comes off the Corning line. It's engraved for President Trump. It's a unique unit of one. It was designed by a U.S. Marine Corps corporal, a former one, that works at Apple now.
That's good. He's done well.
Designed it for you. And the base comes from Utah and is 24 karat gold. And it sits, I'll take the liberty of setting it up.
Wow.
Well, let's see. There we go. Congratulations, Mr. President. Thank you so much.
The great people of Kentucky. You're going to find it a great place to do business, too. It's fantastic. Isn't that nice? We're doing these things now in the United States instead of other countries, faraway countries. This is a significant step toward the ultimate goal of ensuring that iPhones sold in the United States of America also are made in America. With the mass infusion of capital it's announcing today, Apple will also build a 250,000 square foot server manufacturing facility in Houston and invest billions of dollars to construct data centers across the country from North Carolina to Iowa to Oregon. That's big stuff. Apple will also open state-of-the-art manufacturing economy. It's going to be a manufacturing academy in Detroit, and that's a great place to do. Well, you know, big things are happening in Michigan and Detroit. They're coming in because of what we've done with the, I call it the Great Big Beautiful Bill. I added one word, great. But we have probably the biggest, most comprehensive piece of legislation ever passed. It's going to mean unbelievable numbers of jobs and no jobs on, think of this, whether it's tips or overtime or Social Security, no tax. So no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. And there's just a small bit of it. for Apple and others businesses, we're talking about the deductions and all of the things. And actually for people that go out and buy a car, first time it's ever been done, we talk about deductions for companies, but they're going to be able to deduct interest when they borrow money to buy a car if it's made in America. It has to be made in America. So it is amazing. And one of the reasons I think I can say that Apple's coming here is the legislation we just passed with this kind of investment. Apple will also open other facilities, rare earth magnets from Texas, and build, I love that you're doing this. I love that. I love that. And build a brand new rare earth recycling line in Mountain Pass, California. I know that area. That's where they have a lot of truly rare earth. That's fantastic. I love that. And Apple will help develop and manufacture semiconductors and semiconductor equipment in Texas, Utah, Arizona, and New York. For years, Americans have watched as many of our leading tech giants built their factories overseas and exported American jobs abroad. But under the Trump administration, we're doing everything possible to make this the best place on earth to build a factory or grow businesses. I'm allowing them to build electric producing plants with their factory, because otherwise they'd have to hook into the grid. And I think it's one of the biggest things we've done, where you can build, Tim, your own electricity. You become your own electric manufacturer, and that goes along with the plant. So you become a utility. So congratulations, now you're in the utility. I hope they don't value your company based on utility, but that's okay. You're going to be making your own electricity, and as you probably know, for much of this and many of the things that we're doing, especially the AI, they would need actually double the electricity that the country now produces for everything. So it's massive electric, and they're going to be able to make their own, and they're getting very fast approvals. Lee Zeldin is doing a fantastic job, including with a 100% expensing on the one big, beautiful bill. In return, we're asking our businesses to invest in America, and they're coming in at levels that we've never seen before. So I don't know when it shows up, but there are a lot of factories and a lot of plants that are either under construction or soon will be starting construction. So can't tell you exactly when, but I want to be around in about a year from now and 2 years from now, because we're going to see an explosion, I think, like this country has never seen before. Never. Today's announcement is one of the largest commitments in what has become among the greatest investment booms in our nation's history, and we've got the hottest country anywhere in the world. You know, I told you the story that, and Tim, I'll tell you, but I went to the Middle East, and I was with Qatar, I was with UAE, and the King of Saudi Arabia, all great leaders. And then I went to NATO and saw many great leaders, and we just finished that about 4 weeks ago. Virtually everyone said, in effect, that we were a dead country 1 year ago. America, this was a dead country. We were dying, we were dead. And now you've got the hottest country anywhere in the world. This would have never happened except for certain people. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. NVIDIA is investing $500 billion to go along with Apple, $600 billion. $600 billion. Micron, great company, is investing $200 billion. IBM is investing more than $150 billion. SoftBank is investing substantially more than $100 billion. TSMC is investing $200 billion. Johnson & Johnson, $55 billion. Merck, Stellantis, and General Motors are putting many, many billions in. They haven't determined the final number. And many other countries are investing tens of billions of dollars, and I'm not going to give you the whole. list because the list is too long to read, but it's hundreds of billions and even trillions. I mean, it's trillions of dollars that's being invested right now. Last week, it was announced that our economy grew at 3% in the second quarter, and consumer confidence is surging. Blue-collar wages are rising rapidly. Costs are way down. You know, I listen to these horrendous frauds on CNN and various other fake news networks, and they say costs are up. No, costs are down. Gasoline is down. It's going to soon, I believe, be less than $2 a gallon. It's around $2.40 right now, many places other than California where they tax you out of business, but and a couple of others. But gasoline is way down. The price of groceries are down. How about eggs? When I first came here, my first week, the press hit me very hard on eggs. Eggs had quadrupled or something. I said, I didn't know about it. Give me a chance. I've just been here for 4 days. Well, eggs are down. Everything's down. Price is down. The only thing that's up is stock prices. That's really up, and that's through the roof. The stock market has been hitting all-time records, all-time highs. Last week it was announced that our economy grew at levels that we haven't seen in a long time, but the real levels of growth are going to be judged in a year from now when you start seeing some of these incredible plants, because we have car plants opening. They're coming in from Canada, from Mexico, and from all over the world. And they're coming in because they like the way the election worked out, but they also like the fact that they don't want to pay tariffs. And the tariffs, I think, we're taking in hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs. I won't be so specific other than to say, because we don't even know what the final number is. We just made a deal, as you know, with the EU where they're paying hundreds of billions of dollars. Japan paying hundreds of billions of dollars, and numerous other countries paying hundreds of billions of dollars. And we're not even completed there. And as you know, they found $25 billion 3 weeks ago. They said, we have a surplus of $25 billion. And they said, where did this come from? I said, check the tariffs. And they checked. They said, you're right, that's where it came from. And we've really just started. This is just in its infancy. So we have a great country. We have a country that is going to be very rich. It's a country that we're very proud of, but it's going to be very rich. And it's companies like Apple, they're coming home. They're all coming home. And we want them to come home. They have to come home. We're going to treat them really well. We're going to be putting a very large tariff on chips and semiconductors. But the good news for companies like Apple is if you're building in the United States or have committed to build, without question committed to build in the United States, there will be no charge. In other words, we're not going to be charging. So a lot of countries, a lot of companies are leaving various other places and they're coming to the United States. So in other words, we'll be putting a tariff on of approximately 100% on chips and semiconductors. But if you're building in the United States of America, there's no charge, even though you're building and you're not producing yet in terms of the big numbers of jobs and all of the things that you're building. If you're building, there will be no charge. So I just want everyone to know that. And I didn't even tell you that inside. We discussed the concept, but I didn't. So it's a big factor. So 100% tariff on all chips and semiconductors coming into the United States. But if you've made a commitment to build, or if you're in the process of building, as many are, there is no tariff. Okay?
Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's, Senator Clinton's campaign, and that in this President Trump effectively apologizing for having taken the Russian perspective and not the U.S. intelligence perspective. So coming out of that summit, I think part of what the caller was getting at is this just another opportunity for Russia somehow to put the U.S. president on a stage and somehow get him to commit to saying things that are going to anger the U.S. population and look like they're siding with Russia, so that gives Russia a stronger position with respect to bargaining, should there be bargaining that takes place.
If for some reason you say you're building and you don't build, then we go back and we add it up, it accumulates, and we charge you at a later date. You have to pay, and that's a guarantee. So That's a big statement, and I think the chip companies are all coming back home. They're all coming back. You know, we started with Intel, and gradually Intel was just taken over the coals. They were taken to the cleaners, frankly, and moved to other places, in particular Taiwan. But I think a lot of those companies are coming back, and they're coming back very rapidly. So that's a big statement. 100% tariff. I want to thank you very much. Tim, would you like to say a few words about your company, please?
Good afternoon, everyone. Mr. President, thank you very much for having me here today. You've been a great advocate for American innovation and manufacturing. I'm grateful for your leadership and your commitment. That's a commitment we share at Apple because American innovation is central to everything we do. Our products are designed here, we're hiring and growing here, and we support 450,000 jobs with thousands of suppliers and partners in all 50 states. Earlier this year, we made our largest ever spending commitment, $500 billion to the U.S. over the next 4 years. That's already yielding results. Earlier this year, we broke ground on a new factory in Houston to make advanced AI servers. And just last month, the very first test unit rolled off that factory's line, proudly made in America. President Trump shared some kind words about that work, but he also asked us to think about what more we could commit to doing. And Mr. President, we took that challenge very seriously. I'm glad to be here with you today, and I'm very proud to say that today we're committing an additional $100 billion to the United States, bringing our total U.S. investment to $600 billion over the next 4 years. As a part of this, we're launching Apple's American Manufacturing Program. It will spur even more production right here in America for critical components used in Apple products all around the world. And we're thrilled to announce that we've already signed new agreements with 10 companies across America to do just that. First, with today's announcements, I'm proud to say that Apple is leading the creation of an end-to-end silicon supply chain right here in America, from design to equipment to wafer production to fabrication to packaging. In Texas, we're working with manufacturers like Texas Instruments, Global Wafers America, and Applied Materials. We're working with Amcor in Arizona and Broadcom and Global Foundries in New York. Thanks to President Trump's vision, and with his help in his first term, we also led the way to bring TSMC to Arizona by committing to be their first and largest customer. Today, they're producing tens of millions of chips for Apple using one of the most advanced process technologies in America today. We're going to keep working with our suppliers to move even more of this incredibly advanced work to America. And this year alone, American manufacturers are on track to make 19 billion chips for Apple in 24 factories across 12 different states. Second, we're committed to buying American-made advanced rare earth magnets developed by MP Materials, which will become part of Apple's devices shipped around the world. MP is the only fully integrated rare earth producer in the United States, and with this partnership, they'll be significantly expanding their flagship facility in Fort Worth, Texas. We're also thrilled to work together on a cutting-edge rare earth recycling line in Mountain Pass, California. And third, in Kentucky, we've worked with our partners at Corning to build the world's largest and most advanced smartphone glass production line. And I'm pleased to announce that very soon, this is for the first time ever, every single new iPhone and every single new Apple Watch sold anywhere in the world will contain cover glass made in Kentucky. In addition to the American manufacturing program, we're also significantly growing our investments in AI, including expanding data center capacity in North Carolina, in Nevada, in Iowa, in Arizona, and Oregon. So we're going to keep making investments right here in America. We're going to keep hiring in America. And we're going to keep building technologies at the heart of our products right here in America. Because we're a proud American company, and we believe deeply in the promise of this great nation. Thank you all, and thank you, President Trump, for putting American innovation and American jobs front and center. Thank you, sir.
Great honor.
Thank you.
Very
Thank you.
Appreciate it. What a job he's done. What a job. Incredible. I want to thank you very much, and thank you, JD, for helping along. Good job. Really good job. Any questions, please?
Mr. President,
yes.
You promised on the campaign trail to bring forth a manufacturing renaissance. You just mentioned $17 trillion in your first 7 months or so. Can you talk about how an investment like this, all the other ones that you laid out, will positively impact the millions of Americans that trusted you with their vote?
Thank you very much. It changes our country. I mean, our country is a very different country than it was 6 months ago. And people like Tim are coming. We had Micron in yesterday. We had all of the big, great companies that you read about, you don't know about, but you read about. Many of them were making products outside of our country. Foolishly, we lost them. If we had the right person sitting in that seat, that would have never happened 20 and 30 years ago. When you look at the chip business, it would have never left our shores. We had 100% of chips originally, and then we slowly got taken down to nothing. We have the biggest chip companies, to both of them, but we have the biggest in the world coming in. They're going to Arizona and beyond. And we're going to have, in a short period of time, we'll be up to almost 50% of the chips from starting in nothing. And that's something. But we have the greatest companies in the world coming into our country, and that means jobs, and it means wealth, and wealth means security for our people. Okay?
Yes, Mr. President.
Yes, sir. Congratulations on this investment, President Trump and Mr. Cook. What a great example of putting America first. What does the labor force look like to fill these jobs that you have? Do we have enough skilled American workers to fill these?
Well, we do have a lot of workers, and we have a lot of workers that hadn't been looking for work because they were disincentivized, frankly. And people like Tim have tremendous schools and training centers that they build along with a lot of their big plants where they train people on whether it's glass, like in Kentucky, or computers, or whatever they might be doing. It's a complex world, and they train people, and they do a great job. So it's a whole new workforce. Now, we have a lot of them in energy because, they've always liked energy. As you know, coal has opened up and opened up big. We brought it back and brought it back in a very large way. China's right now building 58 coal-fired plants, 58 big ones. And here we were saying we don't take coal. We have more coal than anybody else in the world. We have more oil and gas than anybody else in the world. But we have tremendous energy jobs, and the energy, as you know, we're booming with energy. And that's why the gasoline prices are down. The costs are down. I just hope when they watch these shows, I watch this, I won't use names because I just make them better known that nobody knows who they are. But I watch this group of people on CNN and MSDNC too, the same thing, where they say, well, costs have gone up. Costs haven't gone up, they've gone down. I'm telling you, the thing that's gone up is stock prices and success of our country. Our country is really doing well, successful. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Mr. President, have Putin and Zelensky agreed to a summit yet? And where and when would that be? What would that look like?
Well, there's a very good prospect that they will. And we haven't determined where, but we had some very good talks with President Putin today. And there's a very good chance that we could be ending the end of that road. That road was long and continues to be long, but there's a good chance that there will be a meeting very soon.
How close do you think you are to a deal?
Excuse me?
How close do you think you are to some kind of deal?
Well, I don't want to say. I've been disappointed before with this one. We've solved 5 wars, plus add to that Iran, where we wiped out their nuclear capacity for weapons. They would have had a weapon within 2 months, maybe less, and that was totally obliterated. It turned out it was a total obliteration, and the pilots and the people that did that job are really, we have the greatest armed forces in the world, but that was really something. In fact, there's a model of the plane right there. So, you got to bring that up, Susie. We have to see that. Look at this. This was just given to me. We ordered brand new B-2 bombers. This is a plane that over a period of 36 hours of constant flying. Look at this. So this is the brand new one they just ordered. Similar, but actually quite different. It's new and enhanced. It's an amazing machine. Went 36 hours. We had 52 tankers up in the air loading up our planes because this was surrounded by F-22s and F-35s, and it was flawless, Tim. Even you would say it was flawless. And every one of those bombs hit their target. And then we had Tomahawks shot in from a submarine 300 miles away, and they hit every single Tomahawk hit its target. It was amazing. And that was a big threat. That was a nuclear threat. And here's the new one that we just ordered, a large number of them.
Mr. President, what was the breakthrough today?
Thank you, press.
Mr. Putin, will you agree to a ceasefire? Mr. Putin, will you commit?
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, press.
Mr. Putin, will you agree to a ceasefire? Mr. Putin, will you commit to not killing any more civilians?
Thank you, press. Let's go. Come on, guys. Thank you, press.
Let's go. Mr. President.
Thank you, press.
President Putin, why should President Trump trust your word now? After
Thank you, press. Thank you, press. Thank you, press.
Thank you, press.
Thank you, press.
Thank you, press. Thank you, press. Thank you, press.
Everybody get out of the room.
Interpack
civilians.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, press. Thank you, press. Thank you, press.
Mr. Putin, will you agree to a ceasefire? Mr. Putin, will you commit to not killing any more civilians?
Thank you, press. Let's go. Come on, guys. Thank you, press.
Mr. President,
Thank you, press.
President Putin, why should President Trump trust your word now? After
Thank you, press. Thank you, press. Thank you, press.
Thank you,
press. Thank you, press.
Thank you, press. Thank you, press. Thank you, press.
Everybody get out of the room.
Today, did Vladimir Putin make some kind of concession that he hasn't been willing to make before?
I don't call it a breakthrough. I mean, we've been working on this a long time. There are thousands of young people dying, mostly soldiers, but also, missiles being hit into Kiev and other places. But in terms of soldiers, I think Russia's lost over 20,000 since the beginning of the year. 20,000. And I guess the estimate for Ukraine is about 9,000. It's a terrible situation. We want to get it stopped. We don't have American soldiers there, but I feel I have an obligation to get it stopped. This was not my war. This war would have never started, not even a chance. And it didn't start for 4 years. It went 4 years and didn't start. But this is Biden's war. This was on his watch. And, it's funny, we had no land was taken from Trump. It was taken from Bush. It was taken from Biden. The whole thing they would take from Biden if it weren't for us. But it was taken by Obama. Take a look at what was taken with all of the land that was taken. Nothing was taken by Russia from us. Not 1 ounce of land was taken. I'm here to get the thing over with. It would have never started if I were president. And we're here to get it stopped and get the death stopped. Yeah, please.
President, in the past, you said you would know if Putin was passing you along. What gives you any confidence that he is or isn't doing that this time around?
Can't answer the question yet. I'll tell you in a matter of weeks, maybe less. But we've made a lot of progress. And as you know, we put a 50% tariff on India on oil. They're the second largest. They're very close to China in terms of the purchase of oil from Russia. But so I don't know if that had anything to do with it. But we've had very productive talks today. Yes, ma'am.
President Trump, on federalizing D.C., are you considering taking over the D.C. police? Is that an option on the table?
We're considering it, yeah, because the crime is ridiculous. I could show you a chart comparing D.C. to other locations, and you're not going to want to see what it looks like. It was just up on television, actually. They were showing it. Now, we want to have a great, safe capital, and we're going to have it. And that includes cleanliness and it includes other things. We have a capital that's very unsafe. You know, we just almost lost a young man, beautiful, handsome guy that got the hell knocked out of him the night before last. And I'm going to call him now. We wanted to give him a little recovery time. We just put a call into him. They're calling back in a little while, but he went through a bad situation, to put it mildly, and there's too much of it. We're gonna do something about it. So whether you call it federalized or what, and that also includes. The graffiti that you see, the papers all over the place, the roads that are in bad shape, the medians that are falling down, the median in between roads that's falling down. We're going to beautify the city. We're going to make it beautiful. And what a shame. The rate of crime, the rate of muggings, killings, and everything else, we're not going to let it. And that includes bringing in the National Guard, maybe very quickly, too.
Do you want Congress to look at overturning the D.C. Home Rule Act?
We're going to look at that. In fact, the lawyers are already studying it. We have to run D.C. This has to be the best run place in the country, not the worst run place in the country. And it has so much potential. And we're going to take care of it. You're going to be safe. You're going to be safe walking down streets. You're not going to get mugged.
Mr. President, if you do reach a deal with Ukraine and Russia, would you drop the additional tariffs on India?
Well, we'll determine that later. But right now they're paying a 50% tariff. Okay.
Mr. President.
One for Mr. Cook as well on the iPhone, if I may.
Sure.
The president wants a made in the USA iPhone. What are the chances that you can actually make that happen?
Well, if you look at the bulk of it, we're doing a lot of the semiconductors here. We're doing the glass here. We're doing the Face ID module here. And so there's a ton of it. And we're doing these for products sold elsewhere in the world. And so there's a lot of content in there from the United States.
But what about the whole thing?
We're very proud of it.
Can you make
the whole thing is
here?
just the final assembly that you're focused on. And that will be elsewhere for a while.
He makes many of the components here, and we've been talking about it, and the whole thing is set up at other places, and it's been there for...
Yeah, so the other places right now, going from China to India, and again, with everything going down, India is under the gun because they keep buying Russian oil. So that's not gonna be allowed to continue on for very much longer. Trump is going to see to that. He's already called out India quite a bit on doing that, effectively funding Russia's continuation of this war. So if that source gets cut off, if they come to peace terms here in spite of India, because India was supposed to help out and do their part, but they didn't. They actually rejected us yesterday. So that's very telling, right? Trump already had an agreement in the back of his mind, and India didn't want to play ball. So it's like, oh, really? I'll keep that in mind, right? Now, today, everything at this Putin-Trump summit coming to terms, if it does so, where does that leave India? They were on the wrong side of history here. They're going to be in pretty bad shape once everything goes down.
Long time. So in terms of the cost and all, but I think we may incentivize him enough that one day he'll be bringing that. But he brings most of the stuff. Look, he's not making this kind of an investment anywhere in the world, not even close. He's coming back. I mean, Apple's coming back to America. Thank you.
Mr. President,
Yeah.
just
Indian officials,
let me go, please.
Indian officials have said that there are other countries that are buying Russian oil.
It's okay.
Like China, for instance, buys
okay.
more.
Yeah.
Why are you singling India out for these additional sanctions?
It's only been 8 hours. So let's see what happens
We're
over
going
the
to see
next...
more secondary sanctions.
You're going to see a lot more.
So this is a taste of what's
You're going to see a lot more. You're
Mr.
going to see so
President,
much
you were the driving...
secondary sanctions. Yeah.
So you see, this session was very important because it foreshadowed a lot of events to come, and it was focused on, the Tim Cook announcement, but a lot of these other things happening right now were foreshadowed in it. Again, that reporter trying to push a narrative and gets called out like, man, I just announced this 8 hours ago. Like, let it unfold. Give it some time to work through the system.
Sorry, you were the driving force behind Operation Warp Speed, these mRNA vaccines that are the gold standard. Right. Now your health secretary is pulling back all the funding for research. He's saying that the risks outweigh the benefits, which puts him at odds with the entire medical community and with you. What is going on?
Research on what?
Into mRNA vaccines.
Well, we're going to look at that. We're talking about it, and they're doing a very good job. And, that is a pass. Operation Warp Speed was, whether you're Republican or Democrat, considered one of the most incredible things ever done in this country. The efficiency, the way it was done, the distribution, everything about it has been amazing. But that was now a long time ago, and we're on to other things. But we are speaking about it. We have meetings about it tomorrow at 12 o'clock. And we'll determine. But we're looking for other answers to other problems, to other sicknesses and diseases, and I think we're doing really well. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. President. You said many times that you want to stop wars in the Middle East. Now Prime Minister Netanyahu is contemplating reoccupying Gaza entirely. Is he defying you, sir, or are you giving him a green light?
Well, we have stopped wars in the Middle East by stopping Iran from having a nuclear weapon, and they're they can say they're going to start all over again, but that's a very dangerous thing for them to do, because we'll be back. As soon as they start, we'll be back. And I think they understand that. They're just words. But, no, we've stopped a lot of wars in the Middle East. If you think about what we did with Iran, Iran was the perpetrator of hate, a very evil place, and I think it's going to be a lot different in the coming years.
Well, on the India penalties, do you have any similar plans to enact more tariffs on China as it relates to their purchases?
Could happen. Depends on how we do. Could happen.
I've got an entertainment-based question for you. A few weeks ago, Stephen Colbert announced that he was leaving his show. Howard Stern announced that him and Sirius XM Radio are parting ways. Do you think the hate Trump business model that's been in the entertainment business is going out of business because it's not popular with the American people?
Well, it hasn't worked, and it hasn't worked really for a long time, and I would say pretty much from the beginning. Colbert has no talent. I mean, I could take anybody here. I could go outside on the beautiful streets and pick up a couple of people that do just as well or better. They get higher ratings than he did. He's got no talent. Fallon has no talent. Kimmel has no talent. They're next. They're going to be going. I hear they're going to be going. I don't know, but I would imagine because they get, Colbert has better ratings than Kimmel or Fallon. You know that. Howard Stern, it's a name I haven't heard. I used to do a show. We used to have fun. But I haven't heard that name in a long time. What happened? He got terminated?
Yeah, they're going to separate ways because I think what they're offering salary-wise is real low than what he's getting.
You know when he went down?
Whenever you want.
You know when he went down? No, before. When he endorsed Hillary Clinton, he lost his audience. Right. People said, give me a break. He went down when he endorsed Hillary Clinton.
Mr. President, have you personally started interviewing Fed candidates?
That's an absolute truth.
Yeah, we've started the interviewing process. Scott and I and Howard, a lot of people, JD, we have some great candidates. It's probably down to 3. He doesn't want the job. He said, do you like this job better?
Yes, sir.
I mean, he was a candidate, but I don't think he'll take it.
Are there any candidates
I really don't think he'd take it, actually.
Are there any candidates from Wall Street, Mr. President?
Yeah. Essentially, we're all from Wall Street, aren't we? You know, when you get right down to it, the term Wall Street. Yeah, please.
Yep. You made your tax cuts permanent. You mentioned that the tariffs are bringing in a ton of external revenue. You've opened up markets, the EU, Japan, South Korea, many others, to American goods like we've never seen before. How much growth can we expect in the economy now that this model of yours is sort of beginning to really take off?
Well, I think the growth is going to be unprecedented. I think we're going to have growth that's unbelievable. Now, remember, we're building and just starting to build a lot of these incredible plants. We talked about the electric facilities that we're building, the generating plants, electric generating plants are massive. and they're going to be great, and they're going to sell excess electricity into our grid. So we're going to be having much more electricity than we ever had, and those plants are going to be taken care of individually. I know Tim is building one in one of his big factories, but especially for AI because it needs so much electricity. So I appreciate the question very much. I think the growth is going to be unprecedented.
Mr. President, on Todd Blanche.
I haven't. No, I haven't.
Mr. President, have you been briefed on what Ghislaine Maxwell told Todd Blanche?
No, I haven't.
So you don't know whether you came up in the conversation or not?
I know Todd is a very respected person all over the country, all over the world legally, so I don't know.
Mr. President,
yeah, please go ahead.
Will the new Fed governor be temporary?
We're probably going to go with a temp and then a permanent, I think.
Are the two Kevins?
So the temp is going to be named, I'd say, over the next 2-3 days, and then we're going to go permanent.
Are the two Kevins the leading contenders for the permanent spot for the chair?
Well, the two Kevins? The two Kevins are absolutely, yeah. They're both very good.
Mr. President.
The two Kevins, very good.
Mr. President, is Vice President Vance hosting a gathering this evening to talk about how to respond to the Epstein situation?
Is he working on what?
Is he hosting some kind of gathering of top advisors this evening to talk about how to respond to the Epstein situation?
I don't know. I could ask you that question. I don't know of it, but I think here's the man right here.
I saw a reporter today, and it's completely fake news. We're not meeting to talk about the Epstein situation, and I think the reporter who reported it needs to get better sources.
On that,
look, the whole thing is a hoax. It's put out by the Democrats because we've had the most successful 6 months in the history of our country. And that's just a way of trying to divert attention to something that's total bullshit. Okay?
Excuse me.
A new Gallup poll says that Elon Musk is the most unpopular public figure in the country right now. I'm wondering, do you miss having him around the White House, or is that poll accurate?
I don't know if the poll's accurate. I think he's a good person. I think he had a
Enerpac
bad moment,
low height
bad moment. But he's a good person. I believe that.
President Trump, are you keeping that 10 to 12-day deadline?
China is facing potential secondary sanctions for Russian oil. Then having that tariff or sanction rather, or not, hinges on what going forward?
It may happen. I mean, I don't know. I can't tell you yet, but we did it with India. We're doing it probably with a couple of others. One of them could be China, yes.
Are you keeping that 10 to 12-day deadline that you had given Russia after today's talks?
Yeah, we're pretty much getting close to it right now, but we're having very serious talks right now about getting out of Ukraine, getting it settled, getting it ended. Should have never started, would have never started. If I were president, it would have never started. I want to thank Tim Cook. He's a great man, a visionary, a businessman, just about every quality he can have other than athleticism. I don't know about that. I'm looking at him. I'm not 100% sure about you. You're a good athlete. I'll bet you're pretty good. I think he's good at everything, but I want to thank you very much, Tim.
Thank you, sir.
Congratulations. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, it's a very important press briefing there. It was, I mean, it's typical for Trump now to do these big announcements where he brings in leaders. He brought in CEO of SoftBank. He dedicated, $2 trillion over a number of years. This is massive too, $600 billion now in 4 years. Massive plant being constructed in Houston, Texas, more on the way. And the interesting part is that there were a lot of additional topics that were discussed outside of just the Apple investment, right? They covered the DC, the potential of federalizing the DC police force. So a couple of weeks ago when this happened, it was on the radar. They had been talking about it. It was a point of consideration because some of the staff members in the administration were actually being attacked. And they needed to take care of it after they looked into it and saw the level of spillover in the streets. It was unacceptable. And I'm sure that the DC leadership, mayor's office, police chief, were not responding in the right way. So there you have it. And of course, also they alluded to, is there any type of agreement going on with Russia coming up here? And yet today, you see them coming out of the planes, jointly meeting with one another and shaking hands, riding off into the sunset, it seems, together in the car, into the beast, right? So there doesn't seem to be like a lot of negotiating happening. I mean, the schedule was lunch, and then a press briefing, and we weren't sure if that was going to be just Trump or if it was going to include both of them, and it looks like it's going to be both of them. We're waiting a little bit on that. I don't know what the timing of it is. It keeps shifting on me here, but it should be coming up. Should be pretty interesting. Friends will be friends. Deep fake. I don't know what that. Let's take a look at some of these comments. And somebody was spamming their Israel G. That was not a G move, buddy. Not cool to spam. People would like to read what's going on and participate and communicate, not just read your one-word statement over and over again. Wrong chat, said PJ. I don't know about you, but this is the right chat for everything. This is the right chat. Everyone's in the right chat right now. All right. It may be a little bit. I need to take a bit of a break. I appreciate everybody joining. I'm going to sign out for now. We'll just keep an eye on what happens here in the very near future. But thanks for joining, and for your listening pleasure, here's the theme song.
In the shadow she lurks, a digital sage. Her words cut through like a sharpened blade. Political cow, her voice brings rage. A rebel in the neon-born parade. With a keyboard she wields her might, piercing lies with truth's own light. Drifting through the endless night, exposing wrongs to make them right. Political cow calling out deceit through the screens where fake news meet. She saves us from the twisted tale. Her knowledge fights where logic fails. In a world where falsehoods grow, her wisdom like the wind it blows through every corner, every show. A beacon where the lost clouds glow. Political cow calling out deceit through the screens where fake news meet. She saves us from the twisted tale. Her knowledge fights where logic fails. In a cycle where truth gets blurred,